This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Blood Red Liverpool podcast. My name is Dan Kay and I'm joined by two of my esteemed compadres from the Liverpool Echo Sports Desk on a very special weekend for the Echo. It's our 140th birthday, so yay for us. You two have been to Melwood today to see Jurgen Klopp ahead of this weekend's big match against Tottenham at Anfield on Sunday. What form was he and how was he?
He was in good form, actually, yeah. Gave a little bit of an update on Trent Alexander-Arnold and Joel Matip and Xherdan Shaqiri. It looks like Trent's going to be okay. He obviously missed Genk in midweek, didn't he? Didn't even travel with the squad as he was ill. Looks like he's going to be okay. Yeah, Jurgen Klopp said he spoke to him and he says he was fine, but he hadn't seen him at the time. He wasn't at Melwood today, but seems like he could be okay, and it looks like Joel Matip's going to be. I think they're going to assess him, but it sounded like he's going to be back in the team. So you'd imagine it'd be looking something a little bit more like Liverpool's traditional back four for the visitor Spurs on Sunday. No Xherdan Shaqiri, his weight goes on. That calf injury seems to kept him out for quite a while now, doesn't it? We know Alisson had one for over 2 months, so these things take time.
Especially with his calves.
Yeah.
Well, power cube calves, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. So he's not going to be involved. But generally, yeah, he was in good form. He was talking about Fabinho, and he said, well, it puts him that maybe he needs a rest as he does play a lot of games. And Klopp said, well, he doesn't play on international duty. That's a rest for him. He just travels.
That was quite fun, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like
he
that
just said he doesn't play, he just flies. And then someone said to him, well, should he be playing? And he said, look, I'm not going to create headlines in Brazil. I don't need that on my back, which is fair enough. So yeah, but I mean, Fabinho has been called up to the Brazil squad today. Whether he plays or not, we shall see. But I think he had a bit of a point in terms of suggesting that an international break is essentially 2 weeks off for Fabinho. So there's no danger of a burnout for him. You know how important he is to the Liverpool team. But generally, Klopp was in good form today, yeah.
Good. So it just occurred to me, I didn't even do the introductions properly. That was, of course, our Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst. And to my right, we have Caoimhe O'Neill, also from our sports desk. Caoimhe, what was your main takeaway from your lunchtime appointment with Mr. Klopp today?
Just really enjoyed it, to be honest. Other than the stuff that he spoke about. He was in like really relaxed. Usually it seems like a little bit louder in there and there's just more going on. But he just seemed really relaxed and quite focused. He was in quite a chilled outlook, I'd say. He was very, the questions, nothing really seemed to, I think after the win in the Champions League, that always puts you in a good spirit anyway, doesn't it, going into the weekend? And, he didn't come across at all any pressure, and this is a massive game. Like if you really think into it, and I've just got this, like, Spurs are gunning for revenge. Like, the game at Anfield, obviously that awful own goal, and then obviously Champions League final, like you need any excuse for revenge off that. So, Spurs will be gunning for us, and obviously they've just sort of laid down a bit of a marker in terms of performance with a 5-0 win in midweek. So, you felt like maybe Klopp would show, he doesn't show nothing though, does he? He's just cool, calm, collected, and I felt quite, as a fan, the other side of, you're a journalist and a fan, but as a fan, if you listen to him today, you'd be quite relaxed and quite confident with, how he goes about it. Even like, in terms of the midfield, had a lot of good things to say about Naby and Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. And, this could be a problem that we've got too many good players that want to play in the same positions, but, it's not. It is a positive, and, he really did speak about it like that. And, so took some good things away from it, didn't we, Paul? Our little rainy trip got absolutely soaked.
Just about dried out. Well, I've barely dried out because I've had to walk from the car and also got a bit drenched. We'll carry on that kind of same vein to kind of elaborate on the point you raised. Tottenham have a horrendous record at Anfield. I think it's 3 wins since the Titanic sunk in about 1912. Wow. I do remember kind of like when I was kind of first getting into it in the mid-80s, they did win in I think 85, and that was the first time since 1913, 14, whatever.
The last time that they win was it Modric, I'm sure, scored.
2011, the 2-0. I missed that game. That was the first home game I've missed in about 12 years.
That's why?
I was in Ireland on a Father Ted press trip.
Oh.
Really?
Slight little deviation there. But my point was, though, how...
I mean, I want to know why you were there. Let's deviate.
Okay, well, very briefly, it was a press trip that was offered basically to go to the Father Ted...
Craggy Island?
It was in County Clare.
Right.
I remember that. And basically,
they
have an annual Father Ted festival. They had Father Damien there. Do you remember the kind of little young priest with the earring who kind of led Dougal astray a little bit? He was there. We went to the little house where they lived in, where they would actually give us tea and cakes and everything. People do actually live there. And it was then the end of season game. I hadn't missed a league game prior to that since Bradford in 1999. So this was May 2011. But it became a bit of a monkey on me back. It's a long run. I missed the odd cup game here and there. And we got beat 2-0, so I kind of felt quite justified by it. But yeah, so there's that one, 2011. I remember early in soon as last year, we lost 2-1 at home to them early in the season. Terry Sheringham scored twice. I think that might be the only two. And 1985 when Garth Crooks scored, I think. So Tottenham do have a horrendous record at Anfield. However, as we know, records are there to be broken. A lot's been said about Tottenham in terms of how they've reacted to their disappointment in the European Cup final, in contrast to the way that we reacted, say, this time last season when we were already near the top of the league and motion forward. Obviously, Tottenham, as Caoimhe mentioned, had an excellent 5-0 win against Red Star Belgrade on Tuesday, was it? But otherwise, they've been in horrendous league form. We're lucky not to lose at home to Watford last weekend. Got battered 3-0 at Brighton the fortnight before the international break. They will obviously be looking at this as an opportunity to ignite their season. How dangerous an opponent are they for Liverpool this weekend?
Honestly, I don't think they're that dangerous. I mean, Klopp did say we're playing a top 6 opponent. And okay, they're not in great form, but they are still so dangerous. And you'd go along with that with the players they've got. But I just think Liverpool now are just so far ahead of every other team except for Manchester City in this league that no one scares them or should scare them. I think last week was a missed opportunity. Before the game against Manchester United, I thought Liverpool should have went there and been a little bit more bolshy and just basically played the team rather than the club, if that makes sense. And this I suppose is a similar thing. Liverpool are better than Tottenham. Tottenham are a good side, but Liverpool are better than them. They beat them home, away and in Madrid last season. And I can't really see... I mean, Spurs are going to have to be near perfect on the day to get a result at Anfield, and they've been nowhere near that in the Premier League this season. It's shaping up to look like a Liverpool victory, and what Liverpool have to do is just basically guard against complacency, which Klopp is always so keen to stress and put across in his messages in press conferences and so on. So I don't think that'll be a problem. And I think Liverpool have got enough about them to just inflict more misery on Spurs, who were basically becoming freefall since that Champions League final defeat. I mean, it's a weird one because when Liverpool lost against Real Madrid in 2018, it didn't feel like you were gutted and you were disappointed and whatever, but it didn't feel like that was the end of the line for Liverpool. It almost felt like that was the start of their return to basically becoming a European powerhouse once again. When Spurs lost to Liverpool in June, it felt like that was very much the end of the road and the end of the line. And since then, they haven't really done much to suggest otherwise. Pochettino's always talking like it's the final days of Rome. And even today, he said the Champions League final was win or bust for us, and it was bust. And everyone felt so empty after the game. And he's very much talking as though he's on his last legs. And he's a fantastic manager, but at the moment it's really not going right for him or his players, and Liverpool have got to make sure that they basically add to that misery on Sunday.
I mean, a lot comes down to perception, doesn't it, Caoimhe? The situations weren't wildly dissimilar in terms of the club's trajectories when they got to that European Cup final, but the whole narrative coming out of Tottenham, both before, during and after, has been markedly different to the sounds that we heard coming out of Klopp and out of Anfield. Why do you think Spurs' form has fallen off a cliff the way they have? Is it just down to kind of like the mentality, the kind of end of days type approach, or does it go deeper than that? And can it be turned around?
I don't know, because you sort of look into if they hadn't made the Champions League final, would this have happened anyway? You feel like Ajax or them, if we would have beat them, you feel like, Ajax were going to sell a lot of players and probably not have the same season that they had last season this year. So it's sort of similar with Spurs, although they didn't, do a lot in the market in terms of outgoing players. But I don't know, it just feels like, it felt like make or break for Liverpool, but Liverpool, as Paul mentioned, getting beat by Real Madrid, it still felt like a coming of age. Like, you know, this team, this squad, what Jurgen Klopp's doing, it felt like a vision and something we were aiming for and we were going to do again. You know, we didn't think in our wildest dreams, really. We hoped that it would happen as quick as it did the year after. Like, we're all dreaming of Istanbul and you don't quite know. You just dream, don't you? And you don't know what's going to happen. And then it does happen, and, you know, it sort of cements everything Jurgen Klopp's done. And I feel like, what does that do to Pochettino? And, like, you know, he's in sort of a similar position to Jurgen going into that. One of them was going to be the loser, and in a different way of, you know, not being able to bring home silverware. And, you know, Tottenham haven't won a lot, have they, in recent years? So I feel like that pressure's on them, and, you know, it does kind of just maybe, does a team switch off then over the summer, and it's rebuilding that. I don't know, say the week before, if you went into the Spurs training camp before the final, they would have been flying, they would have been higher than anything, you know, especially after beating Ajax in dramatic fashion, you know. So to reach that level, you can never really reach it again, and you just have to keep sort of going towards it, don't you? And I just feel like this season, I don't know, something's just, I can't say in particular in performances. Obviously, Lloris is injured now, and I think he's a big person in the dressing room, captain, isn't he? You know, a leader. So things like that. But that was quite late on into the season. They weren't performing before he got injured. So, you know, it does call into question. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans will be thinking how hopeful they are that Liverpool won the final. But in the same breath, Liverpool were going to be this team this season either way because of what they've done in the league. And, you know, Spurs were quite way off in the league last season anyway. So I don't know, maybe the Spurs bubble has finally burst, maybe, of the past few seasons. Not to, you know, but they kept getting closer to something and then nothing. They needed a League Cup. Remember, they were in the final of that. They needed something like that. Just a tiny little bedrock of just, you know, these players have won something and to enjoy that success together. But now they haven't, and you feel like Eriksen wanted out and stuff like that. I don't think that helps in the dressing room. And then Harry Kane, I don't know, he's a great player, but he's not performing up to probably the level he'd want to be this season. And, you know, I think it's all individual little battles that they need to win and then come together as a group, but they just feel so far away. And hopefully Liverpool can inflict a little bit more pain on them this weekend, you know, not to be thingy, but Liverpool will want to do that. And I feel like it'll be in the opening 15 minutes where that can sort of, that tone can be set, and Spurs can just be like, oh my God, like,
how'd you live with
like
these?
The Brighton game, they just, you know, they were doing all the same things, and it is hard to, you know, they're doing the same things that worked for them last year so well, but it's not working for them now. So what do they do? And that's, you know, the big problem facing them.
It's a good point you're making. Well, we'll use that to kind of take us on to, you know, a little bit look back at Genk in midweek. When you mentioned that first 15 minutes, and it seemed to me, I don't know what you two thought, in terms of the team Klopp named on Wednesday night, that obviously particularly that midfield, it seemed very much a mentality of, we're aware that, you know, any team can cause us problems if we don't go about this the right way, but we're not going to give you the chance to even get any kind of a foothold in this game. We're going to come out, start strong, and get the game won early on. Now, obviously, you know, taking that approach against a team like Genk is slightly different to taking that approach against a team like Tottenham, who obviously are a few levels above Genk, Champions League finalists, you know, a top 3, top 4 Premier League team. Can you see Liverpool starting off on Sunday in that same way, or do you think they'll go a little bit cagier? I
think it'll be a similar type of intensity to it. I think it's 4:30 on a Sunday is always a nice time for the Anfield crowd.
Yeah.
They've got enough time to get in and make a bit of noise and basically spare them
the
on.
vocal cords.
Exactly, yeah.
It'll be dark as well, we're not getting dark.
Yeah, clocks.
So that's another little kind of element to it, to just increase the atmosphere a little bit, and the players will respond to that. They invariably do, and I expect Liverpool, as Caoimhe says, for them to fly out the traps and try and, you know, make a statement, because they always tend to do it more in these big games anyway. But I don't see it being a similar midfield to the one against Genk. I agree with your points entirely there, Dan, about Klopp. Basically, he showed Genk a lot of respect, as he always does, in his press conference on Tuesday. Spoke glowingly about them, but when the team was announced an hour and 15 before kick-off, it was clear that he felt he could blow them away with his front three, and Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita both in the midfield. I don't see that midfield starting again on Sunday. I think probably let go of quite a bit of control, which it seemed like Spurs could definitely make more of than Genk could. So I don't see the same midfield, but in terms of the intensity at the start, with Oxlade-Chamberlain scoring after 2 minutes, I could see it being a similar type of thing where Liverpool just fly out the traps and really look to make a statement inside the first 15-20 minutes.
It needs to be as well, because obviously at Old Trafford it was the last 15 minutes when they put that statement out, and it wasn't too late because obviously we got the equaliser, but you know, it feels like these games the tone needs to be set quite early on in the first 30 minutes, just to say, you know, an early goal would be great, but not even that, just, you know, in terms of how Liverpool are keeping the ball and playing.
Imposing
where
authority.
At Old Trafford there was, you know, it was balls were going everywhere, and it didn't feel like you just couldn't get. And you know, we were making Man United look good, which is never a good thing these days, is it? So
hard to do.
Take some doing, arguably. One thing that struck me particularly about the league game at Anfield last season was I'd say probably the first half hour of the second half. I'd say Tottenham gave, in that 45 to 75 period, let's say, possibly I would say the best performance by an opposing team at Anfield last season. How much do you think they will be able to draw on that to kind of convince themselves that this is doable for them? You know, looking at it obviously from an outside point of view, from a Liverpool perspective, you could imagine that there might be a fair degree of trepidation for Spurs people coming up here. How do they go about convincing themselves that maybe there is a glimmer of hope? Can they take much from Liverpool's not exactly rip-roaring performance at Old Trafford? Or is there something for Spurs to get their teeth into there, do you think? They're
going to have to, aren't they? Because they've got precious little else to cling on to at the moment. So obviously, Tuesday night was a very good result for them, 5-0 at Red Star Belgrade. You know, Liverpool struggled against them in the last season. So they're going to have to maybe look at that performance last season at Anfield, particularly the second half, as to where and when they can get some success in certain areas of the pitch. They could have won it, couldn't they? Remember Moussoko's chance, and
Van Dijk.
If Van Dijk doesn't split them two there, then they go on and score, and Liverpool's title challenge ends a lot sooner than it did.
Seems to remember Fabinho coming on with about 20-15 to go, had a very big impact on the game, and kind of begged the question, well, which I think we all thought when the team was announced that day, why isn't he playing in those kind of games? He's pretty much the first name on the team sheet now, Keeper, isn't he, for these kind of matches where, you know, the midfield is going to be the battleground where things are won and lost. Yeah, and he's awesome, isn't he? You know, it's difficult with the midfield because, you know, there are, and like obviously Naby and Oxnav, you know, put themselves about like at Old Trafford and then on Wednesday. So it does feel like, you know, there is positions up for grabs, but it just feels like his is not. It feels like Fabinho, and it's been that way for a long time now. We spoke about it before, and you know, he is awesome. He's got the longest legs I think I've ever seen. And he's like longer than Paul's.
Longer than Paul's.
Wow.
And
telescopic legs.
they're just sort of like spades, aren't they? Just digs the ball out, and he's like it's like he's in a war zone constantly. He's just like on a battleground. And he's sort of just running everywhere. And, you know, he only turned 26 this week, and Klopp said, you know, he can play for the next 10 years. And you think, if we can get what we're getting out of James Milner, left back, right back, playing on the moon, we can probably get, you know, so much out of Fabinho as well, because he can play in defence as well. And he looks like a player who could go forward as well if you needed him to. He's tall, you know. If
he can pick a pass. In the case Mane's goal against United last year, these lovely little lofted little chip into the box, which Mane chested down and put in. I agree 100% with everything you're saying. Do you share the concern that I have that absolutely he's fundamentally the first name on the team sheet for this kind of match? Arguably, he's the first name on the team sheet for a lot of these kind of matches. Is this going to become a problem as we get into the business end of the season? Because there's already... Was it the Kante goal at Chelsea when he just started to look... You know, he just looked all of a sudden very tired. Kante ghosted past him. Because he's so important to this team, how important is it that Liverpool develop a kind of plan B to at least preserve his legs and his energy up to a point so that they can be confident going into March, April and May that he can give 100% performances?
I don't think that you can have the rest on this. But I don't think actually these are really fit players, and I don't think it should be an issue with them playing week in, week out, because they are running every day and they're constantly, they're athletes. So I just feel like, it shouldn't be a problem. Obviously it is, like the Kante goal, he just sort of stopped, but I feel like that was a question of more him just thinking, a lazy moment. We've all been there.
And, to be fair,
I'm sure you're using for Echo FC the odd time, just leave a man and let him go and then he scores.
You've obviously never seen me play keeper.
Like tireless displays or tired displays.
And to be fair, I don't, even on the pitch, in the crowd, or watching on TV, I don't think many people thought when Kante lined that up from the edge of the box, this is going in the top corner. It was probably one of them.
Never thought that was let him have a little go.
But that's just picking one particular incident. I think there have been a couple of other incidents in games when he has just started to look a little bit leggy, and I suppose it's the same problem with the front three. How do you get a top quality replacement in when they're not going to play most of the time?
Well, Klopp said on Tuesday in the press conference, some of my players have played 17 games already this season. I don't know who exactly has played that figure, but I remember him saying 17.
Including internationals, probably that.
Yeah, but you'd argue that maybe Fabinho is one of them, because he doesn't really seem to miss many games anymore, does he? And he has become so important to the midfield that it's now gone from Klopp having to pick 3 for every game to picking 2, and Fabinho, he pretty much starts every game. But I think he's one yellow card away from missing the game.
Yes, he is. If he missing the City, one game away from a ban.
Got to go for it, Annie.
Which obviously, if he got it at Villa, would rule him out for City, which would be a big problem.
Maybe you'd think if it's Liverpool winning 2 or 3-0 in the final 2 minutes, he can just give one of theirs a kick and pick up the most cynical of yellow cards. Not that I'd ever promote that, but maybe there are going to be games that Liverpool are going to have to rest him. So looking ahead to, he's going to play Sunday. I don't think anyone could question that. But looking ahead to maybe Aston Villa. He won't play against Arsenal, will he? But maybe he'll sit out the game against Villa with that Manchester City game in mind, because Liverpool cannot afford to be without Fabinho when
he's
Manchester
off Fernandinho.
City, he is, yeah. And
in his prime.
I think that's what Klopp meant by saying he can play for another 10 years, because Fernandinho's 35 now, isn't he? So if Fabinho,
and he's only just started petering out, but now he's playing centre half, isn't he? So it just shows, how.
It was only last summer that they brought in Rodri, wasn't it? They've had so many years for him, so certainly years left in Fabinho's tank. But there will be games where he's going to have to be rested, and Klopp's going to have to be quite cute as to where and when they come.
Well, and if one of the big takeaways from midweek obviously was the performance in midfield of Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita. As Paul's said, Kiva, I don't think anyone expects to see both of their names on the starting lineup sheet for Sunday. But going forward, if Liverpool are to become a little bit cuter and more adaptable in midfield, having those kind of players around with Lallana and Henderson and others to maybe give them options further back would hopefully be an end to the means for that. If one of them was to be involved from the start on Sunday between Chamberlain and Keita, in terms of giving Liverpool a bit more of an attacking outlet, who would you like to see?
Oxlade-Chamberlain, not only for his display against Genk, but because obviously he played in the North London derby.
Of course, and think
he
about it.
He really disliked Tottenham from a different perspective, and not only that, he'll be used to winning them because, historically, and especially when he was at Arsenal would always beat Spurs. It hasn't always been that way over the past few seasons, but he'll have that experience and that sort of, you'll always want to sort of, after the final, he was, I think, happy, and did he send something about Arsenal? I remember there was something there, and
did he, yeah?
I remember there was a message, or there was something, I can't quite remember what it was, whether it was a post or he said something. So obviously that, that rivalry's already in him from his time with the Gunners. So I feel like he'll just have the edge and, that Premier League experience as well. More than what Keita has. And I feel like it shouldn't be a risk throwing Keita into any situation. I think he's a brilliant player, and he showed that from, I think, was it 8 seconds in the other night, and he was just headed the ball and then passed it. It was just great. So I feel like you could throw him in and he'd do you a solid, but I just feel like Oxlade-Chamberlain, after that brace, he's fired, he's ready to go. And a goal against Spurs would just be astronomical, wouldn't it? It'd be amazing for him.
That second goal, by the way, was absolutely stunning. I don't think enough's being made of that.
Was it the best Liverpool goal you've seen live?
I said we did the podcast yesterday on our way back from Belgium, and I said it was one of them, definitely.
Has to be up there.
I'd have to I'd have to sit and have a think of other goals I've seen live, but it was definitely up there. Outside of the foot, first time, 25 yards out, bar and in. Unbelievable. But
also as well, an important goal in the game.
Yeah.
Liverpool, for their 1-0 lead, it was 10, 12 minutes after half time. The game was still in the balance. It's. I always, when people talk about the greatest ever goals, obviously there's technically and context, but I always kind of think for it to be at the very, very top bracket, for me, it needs a bit of context. That's why for me, I'd always say Gerrard against Olympiacos, because it led to something, as opposed to when you do something like that and it's the 5th and a 5-0 win.
Yeah.
I guess we'll all take one if it goes in off somebody's backside on Sunday if it's the winning goal. Very briefly, what's the greatest Liverpool goal you've seen like, Eva?
Well, it wasn't Salah's against Chelsea because I looked down at someone. I think it was sat next to me, and then it just
in the ground.
Was like, what the hell?
I did that for Heskey's header against Roma. I was looking at my phone, and then just got grabbed from behind.
Yeah, I remember speaking to the person next to me, and then the ball was in the net.
If I had £1 for every Liverpool goal I've missed, particularly when watching TV before you could rewind live TV as well.
So that wasn't what you asked, but no. I don't actually know.
Put you on the spot a bit there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll think, and it'll come back to me. I just don't want to give you one that's not, but I should probably have it, shouldn't I? But we'll root it out.
Right, Okay, well, before we kind of conclude with the usual team selections and predictions, it's been another significant piece of breaking news regarding Liverpool Football Club today, with the conclusion in the High Court in London of the court case determining whether New Balance have the right to continue their kit association with Liverpool, and the court decided that they don't, and it looks like Liverpool's 3-4 year partnership with New Balance
4
will be coming to the end will be coming to a conclusion at the end of this season. Paul, how pleased will the power brokers at Anfield be today about this?
Huge. I mean, Liverpool, when they signed that deal with New Balance in 2015, I think it was for £45 million a year, which is a not insignificant amount, but it's not the £75 million that Manchester United are currently earning from Adidas. And if you look at the standings, I think it might only be Tottenham who were below them in terms of the big teams in the Premier League in terms of what they earn. So Liverpool have felt for some time, actually now, it hasn't been just since they won the Champions League. It's been rumbling on for probably over a year now that Liverpool have felt that they could be earning and should be earning a little bit closer to that bottom line that United get from Adidas, which is 75 million. So with the news today, it looks like the 5-year deal with Nike is going to be worth around about £30 million a year. But the intangible thing, the key factor in this is how much they can shift from the likes of LeBron James and Serena Williams and Drake, all advertising Liverpool strips across the world. New Balance argued that couldn't be measured, so that was like an intangible number that couldn't be, because they felt they had the right with the matching clause, but it was decreed by Mr. Justice Tier in the High Court that actually you can kind of put a figure on what these people can bring to you. So the case was dismissed, and Liverpool are free to negotiate with whoever they want, and it will be Nike. And the kits have already been agreed upon, actually. So they'll be unveiled, I'd imagine, at some point next year. It's normally in the April time, isn't it? And that'll be in place for next season. So it's a new chapter off the field, isn't it? Liverpool are going to be earning a lot more than they currently do. You'd imagine with all the 20% guarantee that they're going to be getting on top of the £30 million a year. So the people inside Anfield will be delighted, no doubt.
Kiva, what does this mean to fans? Will fans really be bothered?
I think fans have shown a great interest in the whole, the court case, and I think it's, interesting that we're going to have a new kit provider. That always brings something. The only thing that sort of troubles me is the thought that they've already designed it, and it's already, obviously they have to, because we don't see this behind the scenes logistics, and there's whatever, there was 2.9 million units of whatever, and they've
6
got
6 million on fabric.
And I'm sure
they've got to get all this stuff, so we know that. But like when they've actually talked about it, I'm like, wow, can't they just make it like close to the time because it won't be fresh? And but obviously, they have to do these things. And I'm sure the kit will be great. I think it's quite exciting, to be honest. I feel a little bit sorry for New Balance because they've made 2 of our best ever selling kits, and
kits that we will always associate with good times, happy memories.
We will, and they can go away, and I think will have been boosted by being a part of Liverpool at this time. And the New Balance logo is always going to be on them. The footage from one of our greatest nights ever, if not a couple of great nights we've had in New
and
Balance.
Possibly more because we've got to away yet. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely. And if we can win the Premier League, I'm sure they go away from it thinking we've lost Liverpool, but we've had a great run with them, and for them as a brand, I'm sure it's been very good. It's exciting, I think, Nike, someone to come in new and design our kits. And obviously this opens the door now to all the Mbappe rumours and things, which is, all quite...
It's actually trending at the moment, Mbappe 2020.
Yeah.
Would
there
you believe?
go.
And we can exclusively reveal as well that the home kit will be red.
Yes.
Just in case anyone was wondering.
You never know, though.
Well, if you look at those shorts for this season, but let's not open that kind of worms. Right, we'll wrap things up, guys. Okay, let's do a joint team selection. We're all having Alisson in goal, aren't we?
Yeah.
Are we? Yeah, no.
Okay. Not bringing back David James now that he's been kicked off straightly.
Oh, was he? Yeah.
I only know because I heard that on the radio. I don't watch it, honestly. The fullbacks are fit. I didn't see the press conference today, but catching up.
Well, I mean, Klopp didn't 100% say Trent Alexander-Arnold is no longer ill, but he said, I'd be surprised if he didn't play.
Yeah. And I guess the question then is centre-back. Matip, they're still checking on, aren't they?
Yeah, he's another one. It sounded positive. I'd put my money on Matip starting.
Dejan Lovren had, it seemed to me anyway, I was working in here, so the opportunities I had briefly to look up from my laptop. Lovren seemed to have a decent game until he had a little bit of a Lovren moment in the last minute, which obviously seems like it was almost manna to heaven for some of the Lovren haters on Twitter who, in spite of Liverpool winning 4-1, just got ready to get stuck into him again. Would you have any concerns if he got thrown in again on Sunday?
I can't lie and say, it would be a little bit. He had a great game until then. There were moments, there always are with him, I think, wobbly a little bit sometimes, and there are moments of just pure strength and amazing defending as well. But that moment does leave that little bit of insecurity in your mind, thinking if that happens last minute against Tottenham, it could be very costly for our league title pursuit. And it does leave that. But he's a seasoned veteran, isn't he? He's professional, and you wouldn't think something like he'll learn from that. What you'd like to think he would. He just seemed to get wrongs. I don't even know what happened. Just didn't really use his strength. He used his strength at the wrong time, I think, and he sort of bundled over. Got caught
alongside, and then maybe understandably thought, I'm not going to bring him down here and get.
I was really happy for Genk, to be honest. Feel like they deserved the goal. They deserved that little
Alisson Becker
moment.
didn't look very happy for Genk.
I know, but
clean sheet bonus out the window.
Yeah. I think if Matip's fit, he plays, doesn't he? Yeah. All right, the $64,000 question is here, as it is every weekend, the midfield. Hit me.
Fabinho.
I agree.
Thirded.
Henderson. No, not well.
Adelice, I'm not going to go.
See, this is it, isn't it? This is tough.
And I've got a lot of time for Jordan Henderson.
It's the thing. The problem with Henderson is that he's a captain and he's actually been playing really well when he's played. So there's nothing you can leave Mo for, but other than why would you leave Mo? I
think he's been a huge part of Liverpool's success. I think him moving into that more advanced position in the spring of last year was fundamental to the kind of that team kicking on into the final stage of the season and doing what they did. But I'm sure that his form has been patchy at best, let's say, at the start of this season. And certainly before the midweek game, hadn't he been the first sub in the previous 4 games when we changed the system? Which to me kind of said that something's not quite working there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see James Milner taking that role. And just to jump ahead of you, so I would go Fabinho, Milner, Chamberlain.
Okay, to play devil's advocate then, I'm going to go Fabinho, Wijnaldum, Keita.
And Fabinho, Wijnaldum and Oxlade-Chamberlain. Got to back him now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's two of the three of us putting Chamberlain in. I mean, Milner and the beauty is we've got really good options here.
Yeah.
And no shout for Adam Lallana either.
Lallana, Sunday's here at Old Trafford.
New super sub now. He's last season's this season's Origi.
You said right at the start, Keith, Klopp did seem very kind of chilled and relaxed about it. And if, it's, obviously it's a standard journalistic phrase, so-and-so's been given a selection nightmare, selection dilemma. At the end of the day, these are the problems that managers want. Yeah. Rather than, am I going to have to put a winger in at full-back?
That was actually the first question today. Someone said, I think it was Vinny O'Connor from Sky Sports, after the performances in midweek, have you got a selection headache? And he said no. If he had a headache every time a good player played well, then wouldn't get anywhere.
If you look at the Man City right now, they're playing midfielders in defence, and that's a headache. This is not a headache.
No. And up front, Sean Dundee, Roger Hunt, and
Fabio Borini.
Billy Little.
Agreed.
Now,
can we have
usual
Balotelli?
Suspects.
I didn't actually think
just give him another chance.
Had his best game against Genk. I thought passes were going astray and he was delaying them when he should have released a little bit earlier and so on. And then he just makes a mug of me by skinning two defenders with his back to goal and sticking it away with his right boot. So you got to keep him in. Firmino was again outstanding and
should be banned for that flick. To be fair,
it was.
Before the watershed, the children watching that.
The only problem is Mane didn't stick it away, and that would be the greatest.
Right, each ban him then.
Yeah, front three's the front three, aren't it?
Yeah. There's no changes there.
Okay, right. Scoreline prediction.
Hate doing these. Go on, Paul.
I didn't invent it. Don't blame me.
2-1. Liverpool.
2-0.
You took the words out of my mouth. In homage to Madrid, 2-0. Just to really kind of
a nice little
twist
symmetry.
it right up those North London folk. Right, well, thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this on Friday afternoon ahead of another big weekend of football. Stick with the Echo online and in print, of course, right the way through the weekend for all the latest news coming out of Anfield.
140, we're getting old.
140. We look good on it, though, don't we? We've been eating our greens.
You've only been here for half of that, haven't you?
Yes, thank you, Paul. See you outside after.
I wanted to say the same thing to the apprentice before, but he walked away before I could crack wise, so I've got to get that one in on you, sorry.
Fair enough, well, I'll take that on the chin. Of course, we'll have live coverage right throughout Sunday, all the best build-up, live coverage of the game and all the post-match stuff, and we'll be back on Monday to dissect everything that's happened on Anfield, hopefully with another good win for the Reds, and we'll also be looking forward, of course, to the midweek League Cup game against Arsenal. So have a good weekend, folks, and up the Reds.